Welcome back. Joining me is Sam Savage, Assistant Professor of Voice here at the IPFW Department of Music. Good to have you back on the show, Sam.
Great to be here.
You know, we're going to talk about the voice program at IPFW and the growing opera program at IPFW as well in just a minute. Let's start by talking a little bit about you and what's your background and where did you get your training?
Oh, well, you know, it's interesting. My background is probably a little non-traditional. I started off to be a veterinarian, believe it or not, at Virginia Tech. And let's just put it this way, freshman chemistry changed my life. And so I had to choose other venues for my professional fulfillment. And at that time, I really was not that musically trained, to be honest with you. I got a business degree from Virginia Tech and worked as an auditor at a bank. Wow. And I started to study voice and won some competitions and did some performances while I was an auditor with some symphonies. And I said, you know, this is, I really love this. And I said, since I'm going to be doing this most of my waking day, and go home and sleep the rest of it, I want to do something I love. And I have been very fortunate to do what I love, which is to sing, and even more importantly, I love to give the next generation the opportunity to sing. And that's, I think that's my first calling. I really love teaching people how to sing. And I'm very fortunate to be here at IPFW, and have been given so much support in this area. And my colleagues are very encouraged by the growth in the department as a whole, with the individual successes of many of our students, and just the general level of accomplishment that's happening throughout all the studios. And that makes me feel very good. That's true.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, we are growing and our students are winning awards. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You do teach voice and you coordinate the voice program.
Correct.
Here. And what does it entail to teach voice at the college level?
Well, it depends on the level of the students that come in here. You know, interestingly enough, most of the time, let's say if you're a pianist, you've been studying since you were a child. But if you're a singer, that's not necessarily the case, and usually not. I think it's good that if the singers have had background and they've played an instrument like piano or flute, that helps them. But there's so many of them that come into college programs that really have to catch up when it comes to the basics of music theory and sight singing and things like that. Things that will ultimately allow them to be successful within the curriculum. As far as voice, most of their experience has been in choirs or in show choirs, and the curriculum here is more geared towards, there are two elements of it. There is the choral element of it, and there's also the solo element in which each individual student has to pass what we call in our department an upper divisional, which is an accomplishment, a demonstrated accomplishment on their instrument, regardless of their major. If they're music therapists, they still have to show that. It's a music degree. So it's very important that we instill in the student, regardless of the discipline that they are choosing to pursue, that they show that accomplishment on their instrument. And we encourage performances. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've instituted as coordinator is this vocal division showcase. And that has given students heretofore that did not have that sort of opportunity to practice their solo craft, because they have to do a recital and they have to pass this upper divisional. And if the only time they were doing that was for their final juries in front of us, that really wasn't preparing them for that experience. So I try to provide opportunities that I think are practical and that have application not only to this degree, but if they choose to be performers afterwards.
And a lot of them go into things like musical theater as well, not just opera and classical music, correct?
Absolutely. And I think I've worked with the theater department, and I think it's very important because I could be wrong about this, but it's an interesting dilemma that at least in my field, in the area of vocal performance, with the exception of a few choirs like the Met Chorus, which I participate with, or There's some other paid choirs, but most of the people who are going to actually be successful, at least as singers, are going to be independent contractors. That's the way you make a living in this business. Now, if you're ever an educator, that's a different thing. But if you're trying to be a vocalist, you do it usually as a member, as a soloist,
Right.
which is kind of the opposite of instrumentalists who are looking to land that orchestra gig.
But would you say that your style of teaching or your philosophy is give them a big box of tricks, a box of tools, I guess, and so they could do, classical, musical
yes.
theater, even pop music, or
We do allow, we do work, I would say like 80 or 90% of what we do is in the classical realm,
Sure.
because that is our sort of our charter, as it were. That's how we're sort of certified. But yes, I'm very open to, we did a Sondheim evening for the vocal showcase, and hopefully in the
I love that.
future I would like to have an evening of actual jazz combo singing. I would love to have an opportunity. I used to do that. I love that. I love that genre. I know a lot of people don't recognize me in that, but I grew up with that. My dad had a beautiful voice and a natural talent, and I just grew up listening to all those great singers.
Yeah, we have a great jazz program here as well. You talk about the life of a freelance artist, a freelance musician. You yourself recently returned from New York. You're a regular performer with the Metropolitan Opera Chorus. And what's it like working in New York and flying back and forth between Fort Wayne? What kind of challenges does that pose?
Well, this year not as much. The weather was great, but it can be tiring. You have to pace yourself. I mean, because traveling is always tiring, and living out of a suitcase, and then the strains of trying to keep. Since I am coordinator, there has to be some communication that's going on here. I'm fortunate that I have a very qualified colleague who came in and taught for a couple weeks when I was Dr. Michael Posey, who had an extensive career in Austria, and he came in and taught for a couple years, a couple weeks. And so that the students were left in very good hands.
But you're going back to the Metropolitan Opera in New York City soon to perform in the final installment of Wagner's The Ring.
That's right. What I was doing in January and in February was Goethe-Dämmerung, which is the last of the Ring cycle. Now they have, this is the new Lepage production, which has received, it's received some good reviews and some people not so positive about it. But it has this huge machine. He's the Cirque du Soleil director, and a very nice man, and worked with them, and it was really fascinating to see them pull this production together.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's
and
massive,
it's expensive.
yeah.
It's $16 million. So the budget was incredible, and to see these professionals working, I'll let other people review it, but it was an incredibly rewarding experience to be out there. Deborah Voigt was singing.
Yes.
Brunhilde and J. Hunter Morris. He was sort of he's sort of a fairy tale story. They found this Texas guy who came in and rescued an earlier production in this Ring cycle, Siegfried, and so it had a lot of interesting elements to it.
Well, let's go back here to Fort Wayne. You have a recital coming up on April 3rd here at IPFW, the Reinhardt Recital Hall, solo. And what are you going to be performing?
It's an evening of Italian songs, and there'll be some familiar ones. They go from genre to genre. Some of the earlier ones, some of the earliest ones that every beginning voice major studies, some of the 24 Italian art songs, some of the less familiar art songs from that kind of genre. Then we go into more of what's called the bel canto period. Now, there are varying definitions of bel canto. Bel canto means beautiful singing, and some of that pedagogically comes from the Baroque era, which, like Handel, and we talk about teaching the castratis and all the treatises that came out during that period. But then there's another definition of bel canto, which really refers to, and this is the one I'm talking about, more of a music literature and also vocal style, which is really the music of Bellini, Donizetti, and Rossini.
The 19th century stuff.
Yeah, and
Beautiful music.
Beautiful music, and so there's some selections from Bellini and also Rossini, and then I think there's some more popular ones, like a lot of the Italian tenors in the 20th century sang, popular tunes.
Well, and a lot of these things that you mentioned are from operas. A lot of the pieces that you're going to be performing, are they from operas? Fair to say?
No, they're all art songs.
Oh, they're all,
but,
okay.
but they're from a lot of them from operatic composers.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about opera because we have a growing opera program here, and our opera ensemble is going to be performing actually on April 13th and 15th, something that you've really kind of kick-started, restarted, or what have you here. How's that going?
It's going great. I mean, I think last semester was a really fine performance. I was really pleased with the turnout. We used the Beth McLeish and the ballet, and they're coming back.
New American Ballet here
right,
in Fort Wayne.
And they're going to help us out this semester as well. And but we did Dido and Aeneas last semester, and Brianna Gamble, one of our sophomore students, actually, she came up with the scenic concept, and it was stunning on such a limited budget. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, well.
And the kids have taken. I've divided up duties along of these of the various technical duties, and the students have really taken ownership of these things, and they really show incredible ability and talent, and I'm just so pleased with it. Now this semester, this is more of a series of scene programs. I've sort of loosely written a script for this, and it's all of the scenes have something to do with Paris.
Oh,
So
nice.
and they come from various shows like The Merry Widow, which is really about the Ponte Vedrian embassy, but it's set in Paris. So they all have something to do with Paris. There's La Bohème, which is set in Paris.
And
La
indeed,
Rondine.
it's called April in Paris.
Right. So it's a
Okay.
series of scenes that are tied together with some dialogues that I've created, and all the characters are still basically the characters that they sing with the same motivations that they sang with in the opera, but they are now in this cafe in
Oh
Paris.
my gosh, this sounds like a really fun evening. That's going to be
Yeah.
on April 13th and 15th here at IPFW 7:30. Sam, that's all the time we have now.
Oh.
It's just fantastic work you're doing here at IPFW with the opera program and the voice program, and I wish you the best at the Metropolitan Opera, singing that Wagner and how do you say it?
Goethe Dämmerung.
Gute Dämmerung.
Twilight of the Gods.
Twilight of the Gods. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
For more information about the IPFW Department of Music, visit ipfw.edu/music. For tickets, contact the Larson Ticket Office at 481-6555. Arts Weekly airs every week, Tuesday through Thursday on College Access Television and most Sundays on WFWA PBS 39. You can also see us on YouTube and Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'm Chuck O'Connor. Thanks for tuning in to Arts Weekly. Join me next week with Liz Monier from the Dance Collective and Laura Leidy and the IPFW Guitar Ensemble.